Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. And today we are joined by Benny from AlmaLinux. And upgrading from one major version of Linux to another can be a real challenge, and it oftentimes means a lot of manual work, possible downtime, and plenty of chances for things to break. And that's where Elevate comes in. It's a tool that helps you do in-place upgrades across major versions, like from 7 to 8 or um, 8 to 9 on popular enterprise Linux distributions like Alma Linux, Rocky, Oracle Linux, and more. So today we're going to show you how Elevate works and how it can make your upgrade process a lot easier. And yeah, let's jump in.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm so glad to be here. I know we've been trying to get this together for a while, so I'm excited to finally be able to make it happen.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And I'm just going to add in the presentation, and we'll be doing a demo in the end as well.
Yeah.
Also, we'll be answering questions live in the end after the demo. So if you have any questions, please feel free to share those in the chat while we are walking you through the whole process and the agenda for today, and we'll be answering the questions in the end. Lastly, I will leave the links in the description below. Even though this is a live stream, it's being recorded, so you can watch it later on if you're missing out, and you can check out the links in the description below as well. All right, Vinny, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks. So I'm going to start with a little bit of background about what AlmaLinux is, how we came to be, and all of that kind of stuff, and what we've put together. But I'll be pretty brief about that one. The first question we get is, what is AlmaLinux? So AlmaLinux is an operating system that is in the enterprise Linux ecosystem. Without getting too deep into the drama of how we came to be, we are a free Red Hat equivalent operating system that offers 10 years of support for each major version, and we were born in 2021. It was born from a need to have a no-cost version of Red Hat after CentOS Linux was discontinued. We build from the same sources as Red Hat. We match versions of software and release cycles and version numbers and all of that kind of stuff with Red Hat for the ease of our community. And we build from the same sources they do. We support all the major architectures that are used in most places. You can run on your normal laptop or desktop. You can run on your Raspberry Pi. You can run AlmaLinux on if you happen to have a supercomputer laying around, you can run it on your supercomputers. Anywhere that you want to run AlmaLinux, you can. All of those things together have made us the perfect use case for a number of different people, or the perfect choice for a number of different use cases. Everything from your home lab to home automation to CERN or other labs using AlmaLinux for everything from automation to analysis to just research in general. High performance computing, we've got a huge adoption in the VFX industry. We've got for both their desktops and for their render farms. We've got a huge adoption in the web hosting industry. We have it's really just being used almost everywhere. From the everyday to the completely remarkable, we're finding AlmaLinux all over the place. We even get users telling us about things like being on the BART or the Paris Metro or all over the place. So it's been pretty great. We are on 6 of the top 500 HPC clusters we are being used, this is as of November of last year, which is pretty incredible to me. You can use AlmaLinux pretty much anywhere you want to use it. It is a very, we have worked really hard, and we have a lot of community members contributing to supporting all of the places that you might want to use AlmaLinux. So ISOs, container images, cloud images, where I have yet to find a web host that doesn't support your use of AlmaLinux. Whether it's a traditional web host or a cloud web host, bare metal, it doesn't matter. And you can use AlmaLinux on WSL for the Windows subsystem for Linux. Pretty much anywhere you want to be. More important, or maybe at least as important as the OS is who is behind AlmaLinux. So let's talk about that from a couple different perspectives. First, from my perspective, the biggest reason that the shift with CentOS was able to happen was that the project itself had no central governance, no central ownership. And while there are always problems with democracy, we still believed that the best form of governance for an open source project, especially one that encourages neutral collaboration, is a nonprofit. So that's what we did. We set up a nonprofit to own everything. The nonprofit allows foundation memberships for both individuals and for corporations. We set up a nonprofit board because it was really important to us that everything be owned in a way that ensures that it cannot be bought or sold in the long term. We had everything set up just 3 months after our initial announcement and had formed, or by our initial release in March of 2021, and had formed the board and set up the nonprofit by then. This is our board. Since the beginning, the foundation has been headed by a volunteer community board. The first version of the board was obviously appointed because we couldn't have an election, but since then we've had elections. We actually have another one this year. And interesting, most of the people on this board are actually employed as by sponsors at this point. But you'll notice that I'm the only one that's listed up there without a company, and that's because I'm sponsored to do this full time by one of our foundation sponsors at this point, which I think is pretty cool because it's honestly the best job I've ever had. The board's job is to ensure fiscal responsibility and decide on and drive like the general vision for the project, as well as provide guidance for anybody that's doing the work. Last year we set up this thing called the AlmaLinux Engineering Steering Committee, what we actually call for short the ALESCO. ALESCO's defined goal is to act as the central meeting point for collaboration between everyone working on anything related to the AlmaLinux project. And by having open and honest and inviting discussions and inviting viewpoints from everybody that touches AlmaLinux, we ensure that AlmaLinux continues to serve its community. They had their first meeting, I want to say it was mid last year, and immediately started working on what we were going to do with AlmaLinux 10. And we're expecting to release AlmaLinux 10 next month. It's impossible to define in a coherent way or a timely manner what these SIGs that are part of AlmaLinux are able to accomplish. But this slide tries to give you a general overview of what they generally are responsible for. This isn't even a comprehensive list of all the SIGs, but I tried. For example, the infra SIG is responsible for the mirror system and the deployment, like the automated deployment of our website and that kind of stuff that isn't remotely listed there. Marketing is responsible for the content of the website, in addition, which is like the messaging and the translations and that kind of stuff. We are all of our translations for the website are community sourced, but we're responsible for making sure that they continue to be good in quality and actually represent what's on the website. We manage our social media accounts and that kind of stuff. It's a lot that gets done across a lot of people. This year we are up to, 35 sponsors. We are fully funded by sponsors and community members and are continuing to expand that number all the time. We actually, the most recent one on that list, Viatel, is our newest sponsor. They're not even been announced yet. They were just added at the beginning of this month. The number of companies that have shown up to back us, to me, is proof that we're continuing to solve problems that are crucial for our community and that we're a necessary solution that needs to continue to exist. AlmaLinux OS is delivered to the world by over 400 mirrors across 6 continents. It's used on 7 continents, but we don't have a mirror down in Antarctica yet. This geolocation aware system automatically chooses the best mirror that's closest to you geographically, so you always get the best experience. And all of these mirrors, except I think 3 of them, are hosted by people who are giving those mirrors to us as a donation. So they have the opportunity to become mirror sponsor members of the foundation just because they host a mirror for us. This year, we're well over 1 million devices that are calling home to the AlmaLinux mirror system for updates, just short or just over 1.4 million. You can see that this growth every year is starting to be exponential. These devices are sticking around for a long time, and the users are coming from across all industries, like I said, everything from telephony to education to large data manipulation to oil and gas to VFX, like I said. And keep in mind that this graph only shows the devices that are actually calling home to our mirror system. If they're using their own mirror, like a private mirror, or for whatever reason the mirror that they're using is not hooked up to our mirror system, we're not going to see that because we don't take telemetry from any of the devices that get AlmaLinux installed on them. The only information that we have is based on our mirror system. And when people walk up to us at conferences or send us emails or something and tell us how many devices they have, based on those conversations, I think we're actually more at like 5 or 6 million active production installs of AlmaLinux at this point. So then the question is, what do we do? Obviously, we release an operating system, but we realized early last year that we have a bit of a mantra that has kind of naturally evolved out of how we make decisions, and it's this. We focus strongly on stability throughout not just the operating system, but also in the organization. We know how much of a ripple effect each decision we make. And in any instability, whether it's in the OS or in our structure, or like the structure of the organization, would cause problems for our users and the now, I think, 6 downstream distributions that I know of that are based on AlmaLinux. We continue to learn about the incredible things that are being done with AlmaLinux by AlmaLinux users all over the world. And it is astonishing to see the ways that AlmaLinux is impacting that world. Drama in your operating system or in your open source community or in its leadership does no good for anybody. And keeping drama out increases the stability overall for everything and ensures that we're focused on what our community needs and not any kind of infighting. Almost immediately after we stopped using RHEL directly as our upstream sources in 2023, we started to see the benefit of what we're doing, which is a lot more freedom. We can now pull in patches from critical flaws, for critical security flaws or bugs that our users need patched without having to wait for RHEL to prioritize it first. This allows us to directly serve our community, whether or not our users are like match Red Hat's community. With our release last year, we took a step further by adding support for PCI IDs that RHEL had deprecated. So adding a bunch of software or a bunch of hardware that Red Hat had deprecated because it wasn't needed for their community. And then the question we always get when we introduce patches that Red Hat hasn't released for whatever reason is, does that mean that we're drifting away from Red Hat? And the answer is no. Anytime, the biggest thing that we want to see is consistency for our users. So anytime we have deviated from Red Hat for whatever reason, as soon as they pull in the patch, because they almost always do, once they've pulled in the patch, we revert to what Red Hat has released, because we are very, very focused on maintaining that compatibility with Red Hat. And if we start to deviate too far, then that'll be harder to maintain, and we don't want to make things hard for ourselves. Anytime you're looking for any deviations, you can find them on our wiki. And if there are non-Red Hat duplicate packages or duplicated packages, you can see them on that list. It's one of those things that we think are, that kind of transparency is really important and really needed for our users. We also have our own build system that we've built. The reason, simply stated, the reason that we went with our own build system instead of any of the other options that were out there was we knew exactly what we needed, and we had the support of a number of sponsors that were willing to put in the work to make it do. It is fully open source. It is on our GitHub, in our GitHub organization. Anybody can contribute to it. It is kind of a bear to get to a point where you can contribute to it, but it is an incredible system. And we're hoping to be able to open it up so that other people can contribute packages or build packages for the enterprise Linux ecosystem using our build system. And then last year, we released this new thing called AlmaLinux Kitten. AlmaLinux Kitten acts as our upstream. It is not, it's based on CentOS Stream, but with the changes that we need to make for our community and built far ahead of time for a few reasons. The biggest difference here is that this gives us an opportunity to build and prepare ourselves for AlmaLinux, for AlmaLinux 10. Otherwise, we would have had to wait for Red Hat 10 to be released. So this gives us, this let us set up all of our build system infrastructure, all of our testing well ahead of time without having to wait for RHEL 10 to be released. We actually released AlmaLinux 10 beta last year, so people could start to look at that too. The other thing that this does is give our community an opportunity to start looking at what 10 will have and how it will perform. The reason that's important is I kind of passingly mentioned that there's a number of OSs that are based on AlmaLinux. If they want to, this gives them an early look for if they want to get their operating systems and their infrastructure set up for AlmaLinux 10 ahead of time. They don't have to wait for our official release next month. They were able to use this to get things going. And any software that wants to support AlmaLinux 10 has an opportunity to get testing now in what will based on something that is very similar to what AlmaLinux 10 will look like. This also gives us our own wholly owned upstream, so we don't have to rely on a testing environment that isn't releasable. I mentioned AlmaLinux 10 a couple times. AlmaLinux 10 has some of the strongest deviations from Red Hat while still remaining completely 100% compatible with Red Hat. We are continuing to extend our hardware support, and we added a bunch of features and frame pointers and that kind of stuff. Within the x86-64 architecture, there are versions that represent specific CPU feature sets. And with RHEL 9 in 2021, Red Hat pushed to support V2. And with RHEL 10, they're moving to V3. We still have a huge amount of users that are going to be looking for V2 support because their hardware is not too old to use. It is not out of date. It doesn't need to be replaced yet. But if we were continuing to only follow Red Hat 10, then those users would be stuck without anywhere to go. They would have to replace their hardware before they could upgrade their OS. We wanted to make it possible for them to continue to use AlmaLinux and get updates without having to upgrade their hardware. So we're releasing a version that is specific to support that hardware. And that's just one of the ways that this community is showing up, and it's really, really cool. And then we get to talk about the thing that I'm actually here for today, which is Project Elevate, or what we typically just call Elevate. In 2021, we started the Elevate project because as CentOS users, we're trying to solve the pain points that we've had as CentOS users. And one of those huge pain points is upgrading between major versions in place. This is something you've been able to do in the Debian world for a while, but in the enterprise Linux ecosystem, it was set up a new device and install the OS and then migrate all the data, or take backups and wipe your device, which is always terrifying because what if you didn't actually get everything before you're doing it? And this allows you to upgrade in place. It's based on Red Hat's Leapp framework, which they have open sourced and has been open source for a while. And Leapp historically only allowed you to upgrade from between major versions of Red Hat. This Elevate is developed in a distribution agnostic way and is built as a tool for the whole ecosystem, not just AlmaLinux, because we really want to see people using an updated and secure operating system. The number of devices that are out there that are not updated is too high for anyone's good. And so we're trying to make it easy and possible to upgrade in place. We maintain this soft fork of it because to add the features that we need, in addition to supporting popular third-party repositories. With EPEL was probably the biggest one for us, because if you're familiar with EPEL at all, EPEL has thousands and thousands of packages. And what this support means is that between each major version of the operating system, we have defined which package needs to be installed. And it's one of the biggest pain points for Elevate, but it's also really, really cool. I think that it's that kind of thing shows that our community really cares about what they're working on. And I think we're going to do the demo now. If you're ready, come on. Yeah, so we'll just go through this real quick. What we'll see here is you'll see that you're on CentOS 7 with this demo, and then you install two packages. There's the Leapp upgrade package and the Leapp data that is specific for the operating system that you're going to. So in this case, you're going to install the data for AlmaLinux, and then you're going to run this pre-upgrade script. It runs essentially, I don't know, it's like 100 tests or something that looks to make sure that your things like your hardware is supported, and that as much as it can, determining that the upgrade process will actually complete correctly and without errors. It checks to make sure that the repos are supported. It checks to make sure that your the system has enough space, like all of the very basic things that need to be there. And then you run this upgrade. The thing you would do in the middle there that isn't mentioned is that you'll actually check the log to make sure that all of the errors or warnings that are listed there are handled. There are a couple of really common ones that we actually document, but for the most part, it tries to be very straightforward. And then you run this upgrade. It's going to go through and actually download all of the packages that are used in the upgrade. And then it creates a Elevate specific image that is going to be rebooted into by Elevate to act as the environment that runs the actual upgrade. So we'll see that get completed here in a second. I think this one takes a minute because this is actually writing the image, if I remember correctly. And then it says, again, it gives you a report that you can review. And then you reboot. It goes, you'll see that there's the Elevate specific image that is in the boot menu. It automatically boots into that and goes through, restarts, runs the actual upgrade where it installs all of those packages, updates all the configuration files, and all of the stuff that is related to that upgrade. This is a system that doesn't have many packages installed intentionally because we're trying to show the process without making it overly complicated. Most upgrades as long as you don't have a super complex system, most upgrades are going to take about this long. And I think we've only got about 3 more minutes left in this demo. But it runs through and it does all of the package updates. And then once that's complete, it'll reboot once and perform all of the SE Linux related updates, and then reboot one more time, and you'll boot automatically into your new upgraded OS. It is, for what it does, we have simplified the process as much as possible for the end user, because you don't need anything to be complicated here. It's already complicated enough. Here we're writing the SE Linux stuff. And then, ta-da! Now we're into AlmaLinux. You'll see we just do a quick login. You'll also see it pops up with a report as soon as the login is presented, so that you can go look at just the finishing of the script there. You can go look at that report and see if there were any problems, see what errors it encountered or any concerns that it might have had. You can see we have upgraded to AlmaLinux. It is that simple. On our wiki, you'll find step-by-step guides that run you through all the way from CentOS 6 through AlmaLinux 9. It is a very complicated process, but when we announced CentOS 6 support in Elevate, I was amazed at the number of people who showed up and said that the Elevate was going to help them because they still had CentOS 6 devices. And it was one of the best things that I've ever felt or encountered, to have people using Elevate to bring something that was so very out of date into a supported and updated OS. We obviously allow air gap use of Elevate because, again, we don't want to limit where it can be used or how it can be used. We want it to be used as frequently and as widely as possible. This is specifically targeted at people who can't or won't rebuild their environment for whatever reason, but still need to get to an updated OS. This makes it really, really easy for people. And you'll see guides for testing and contributing. One of the best ways to contribute is by adding support, by helping us add support for additional repos. You saw that repos list, the different places that you can use the different repos that are supported by Elevate. Adding support for additional repos is actually relatively easy and really, really helpful. So if you're familiar with Red Hat and the Enterprise Linux ecosystem, this is definitely an easy way to get involved if you are interested. This one, we go to a number of conferences each year. We reach out to our community in a variety of ways. And I know that Elevate has been used in production at least 500,000 times. And those users also always come up to us and say thank you in a different way. This screenshot is actually from our community chat on Mattermost. That is, to me, it is one of the best examples of what we're trying to accomplish. This guy had a device that had been installed in 2009 and then never touched. And with our help and with using Elevate and the community getting involved and helping him, in a day, he updated that device from the OS that it had on it in 2009 to AlmaLinux 9. And to me, that was like, that's what we're doing. It took about 6 hours of work and a lot of fighting because he had a lot of like quirks that he had to work out. but it is possible and useful for people to use all over the place. If you're interested in contributing, there's the soft fork link, there's the OS and third-party repo configuration, and there's the contribution guide. We would love to have you come join us. I do have the shameless plug. I know that's not specifically why you were here today, but I do want to say, if you love open source and have expertise of any kind, find a way to give back. Open source is one of the best communities in, I say community, knowing that it encompasses everybody around the entire planet, but it is such an awesome way to give back to, or to give to an open source, to give to a project that you care about, is just to show up with your expertise and find a way to get involved. It is also a great way, or a great place to learn. So for example, if you're typically a programmer but you want to learn marketing, come talk to me and I will help you learn marketing, and we'll work together to make AlmaLinux better. I have this slide. There's all kinds of ways to get involved at AlmaLinux. If you're a company, come invest. If you're a person, come contribute, or just come hang out, or answer questions in the forums, or help with testing. All of the things that you can think of are things that we're looking for, and probably many things you can't think of. And that's all I've got today. Thank you very much. And now let's talk. Let's have questions. I'm sure there are ones. It looks like the comments were really active.
Cool. Well, thank you, Benny. Yeah, we have tons of questions.
Awesome.
I picked the best ones. Someone first asked if it is Debian based. I don't think so.
No.
It's RHEL.
Yep. Yeah, we're Red Hat based.
Cool. And someone is asking, how do I upgrade in Arch Linux? Elevate with CentOS is completely different.
It is completely different, yeah. Arch Linux is a completely different operating system. You'd have to follow their directions for that. I'm not sure that, I honestly don't know if they allow in-place upgrades.
Okay, cool. Someone is asking, what are some of the common pitfalls users face during in-place upgrades using Elevate?
Yeah.
Especially if you're dealing with third-party repositories.
Yeah, so the third-party repositories are hard because you have to, typically what I see people have to do is disable them and then go through the upgrade and then manually update those packages. And that can be kind of a pain. One of the other common, we actually have on the wiki, we have a number of documented, like, known sort of problems. There's one with like an SSH configuration, a common configuration change that needs to be had and that needs to take place between I think it's 8 and 9, and you have to, like, if you don't change this line, SSH isn't going to work, but it's part of the guide. We document all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's a couple, but we've got it all documented.
Cool. The next question is, how does Elevate handle upgrades on systems with heavy customizations or non-standard configurations?
Sure, yeah. So it depends on what you've customized or what the non-standard configuration is. It is at its core just a bunch of packages being updated. So as long as you've done your configuration changes in such a way that is supported between versions of the package, then it should be fine. But that's why testing exists.
Cool. Someone is saying, I really like the tiger painting behind.
Oh, thank you. There is so there's an American television show that is called B99, and the story doesn't really matter, but in the very last episode, there's a joke that involves tigers and toucans being on like a jumpsuit that somebody wears. And my 40th birthday was a few years ago, and my best friends decided that it needed to be themed tigers and toucans. So one of their kids designed my banner, and now it's on my wall.
Cool. I also see the conference badges.
Oh yeah. I need to organize those things in a better way, but those are the ones that come from, I want to say 2004 15 and newer. So it's 10 years of badges or so.
Cool. The next question is, how does Elevate ensure compatibility and minimum disruptions when upgrading systems that rely on packages like Docker CE or MariaDB from any external repositories?
So I don't remember about Docker, but I know MariaDB, we do support that one. And the reality is that we rely on testing and people involved in those projects. So MariaDB, we actually have people involved directly that are like employed by the MariaDB project to work on the MariaDB project. And then they come hang out and make sure that what we're doing is exactly what we need to be doing for Elevate. So it's collaboration between us and the projects themselves.
Cool. Someone is asking, is Elevate safe with cPanel installations?
That's a really good question. So cPanel actually has their own fork of Elevate because they do support AlmaLinux and they're actually one of our sponsors. They care a lot about it. And that's obviously a pain point for web hosting providers is trying to manage upgrades between major versions. They have a fork that they maintain and they test. They were actually asking us questions about it the other day. They have nightly automated testing that they do with their fork of it.
Cool.
So yes.
Yeah, these are very good questions. Keep them coming.
Yeah.
How does Elevate ensure compatibility? Oh, we answered that one. The next one's for air-gapped environments. I believe you spoke about this.
Mm-hmm.
What challenges should admins anticipate when using Elevate, and how are those addressed in the tooling or the documentation? By the way, people asking for resources, I've listed everything in the description of the YouTube video, so just go check that out as well.
So the air-gapped environments, the biggest thing is that you have to make sure that you have downloaded all of the packages that you needed to your local, whatever you're using, your local mirror, so that when the upgrade is run, you actually have everything you need. Beyond that, it runs just the same as it did what we just saw.
Cool. The next one says, have there been any benchmarking or feedback on post-upgrade system stability or performance using Elevate, especially in HPC or enterprise environments?
Ooh, good question. So I don't know that there has been any benchmarking. There's definitely been feedback. The only times that I've seen feedback that represents any kind of degraded performance or anything like that is when there's like a known problem with the hardware or the OS and some kind of compatibility between the two. The stability, again, is one of our focuses, right? So making sure that whatever you're expecting to work is one of the big things. I don't think I've seen Elevate used in an HPC environment, and not to say it hasn't been, but it would be really interesting to see if it works. We've got a couple of tests environments. Maybe I should co-op. Well, I can't until we're done with a release, I'm sure. But maybe I can co-op one of our build servers to see if Elevate works.
Cool. Keep an eye on that. Let's talk a little bit about contributions. So a lot of folks have asked such questions like, how do we get started? So what parts of the Elevate project need the most help?
Yeah.
Testing data, support for new distros, anything that stands out where you
would recommend? I think the metadata is going to be the big thing, right? That's the one that is always needs to be, but there are plenty of issues on the repos that if you are looking to contribute, go there, comment on one of the issues and say, hey, can I help with this? There's always like I mentioned, the additional repo support. So if you want to use Elevate and there's a repo that you need help with and that you can help contribute to Elevate, then adding that to Elevate is the easiest and best way to contribute at this point, I think.
Cool. Where would you recommend beginners to get started with if someone is a beginner? Because if someone is experienced, like they know what to do. But if someone is like new to the project and maybe even new to the ecosystem, where can they help out? Maybe documentation or testing or something?
Yeah, for sure. So documentation is the easiest place, or marketing. I'm always happy to help, or happy to have the extra help. We've got a documentation SIG that needs some help. Honestly, that one is, I think documentation is one of the things that every open source project struggles with. We are always looking for people to help with forum questions. So if you've got any experience in the enterprise Linux ecosystem, there's a link in one of my slides, I don't remember which one, but has just a short link that will take you to a list of all of the unanswered questions on the forums. And so I'd love to have you contribute there. That's one of the best places. And I promise that even if you are new, there is a real chance that you can help somebody, even if you're just good at Googling or better at Googling than they are. You can just help answer questions or ask questions about their environment that helps them end up solving the problem. So
yeah, I love that answer. And also what you mentioned earlier about open source and the community in general, like it's one of the best places to be a part. And yeah, someone is asking, is it, I know the answer to this, is it recommended to take backup before update or just hope for the best?
Dear God, always take a backup. Like, yes. You'll see, even in all of the guides that we've written, please take a backup first. Don't ever not take a backup. Always. Backups, please.
We mentioned about the Leapp data and Leapp repository. Mm-hmm. So the next question is, how do community-driven contributions to Leapp data and the repository folks get reviewed and integrated into the Elevate's upstream process?
Yeah, so I don't think there's a defined process for this yet. That's one of the things that we're working on this year, is making sure that each of our repos has some kind of contribution guide in some form. But it is essentially, if you submit a pull request, one of the people who is involved in the project will pick it up and review it and give you feedback on it. And then as long as it doesn't conflict with what we need in order to maintain what we're doing as a soft fork, then we'll probably pull it in. There's a real chance that we would send you upstream if it's something that is also impacting people that use Leapp in a wider way. So we would send you upstream to contribute to the project there. But yeah, pretty straightforward.
Cool. Those are all the questions. Thanks for joining, everyone. And thanks, Benny, for joining. I'll leave all the links in the description below, and you can watch this recording later on as well.
Awesome.
And hopefully many of you will contribute. For those who didn't make it, you can watch the recording. And yeah, if you have any questions, leave those in the comments below, or you can also join the mailing list and check it out over there.
Yeah.
So one final question: why not Rocky Alma?
What's Rocky Alma?
I have no idea.
I assume what they're asking is, why have we not merged with Rocky? And that is a very long answer, but I can answer briefly. Realistically, we're solving the problem of what has happened in the Red Hat ecosystem in different ways, both philosophically and technologically. So I think that for us to merge, it would take a very big shift for at least one of us, right?
Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing, Benny. Thanks everyone for joining in, and we will see you in the next one.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.